All right. Hello, Trials Collective. Different face this week. I'm obviously not Ian. I am standing in for him tonight to run down the East Coast events this past weekend and a couple weeks ago, actually, with the Capitol Backyard Ultra, and also upcoming events for you to keep your eye on to watch this weekend and cheer, even if you're not involved. So, but first, as always, we would like to thank our newest Patreon members. So this week, we want to say a big thank you to Jim Devona. So Jim Devona is a trail runner and local artist out of the Binghamton area. His art is actually awesome, really incredible. I wish I don't have his Instagram right now, but if he's in listening or anything, put it in the chat for everybody. He does like these really, really awesome, like pencil portraits and stuff. And so, yeah, if it's really neat. And he volunteered at Cayuga this weekend. He's running our next race, Whiteface, in a couple of weeks. So big thanks to Jim Devona. And then Pete Kresek actually re-upped his membership. $7 level. Pete is an Ithaca staple runner. He's done every event probably around here. And this weekend, he's actually doing the Laurel Highlands Ultra, which is a 70 miler down in Pennsylvania, put on by friend of Trails Collective, Vinny Capadora, happily running. And so good luck to Pete this weekend. And thank you to both Pete and Jim for your support. The only way we are able to do this is because of the support that we get from the community, from our collective. And so if you guys are enjoying the things that we're putting out, I mean, even just this or the other podcast that I do, Voices from the Collective, if you like the website, which is get an update. It gets updated pretty frequently now by me, and we have a lot of different columnists that are contributing different articles. We have some about beginning, about nutrition, hydration. We have some about just highlighting different trail towns in the area. So all good stuff going on there. So yeah, if you haven't been to the Trails Collective website, check it out. We're also redesigning the online store. So hopefully pretty soon you'll be able to order all your favorite things from our website. So stay tuned for that. That's our big summer project, and it's coming along. So before we get into results from this past weekend, I want to just bring your attention to some races that are coming up just to watch for this weekend. We're all getting our long runs in, but what else do you want to do after a long run besides but eat and just watch running? I mean, come on, it's real fun, right? So here's what we got. So this is actually a cool race. It's called the Bad Decisions 30 Hour. It's in Andover, New Jersey. And so it's a team race that you actually run together. So it's not a relay, but you have a couple partners. And apparently it's a very interesting style race. You get two different versions of the challenge. And you, I guess, pick the one that sucks less. So I'm not really sure what that means, but a 30-hour adventure race. And then once you complete it, you're supposed to pay attention to the U-turns is what they call them. This is where like you can have the teams that are still going, that are finishing behind you, like do suckier things. So it seems like a pretty cool format. So pay attention to the Bad Decisions 30 hour. We have down in Pennsylvania in Pennypack Park, we've got the Half Sour, Half Kraut Marathon put on by our friends at Uber Endurance Sports. And then in Elmira, New York, pretty close to where we are in Ithaca, there's the Brant Hill Challenge 3 hour. And so it's a 3-hour timed event done on an old loop in Newtown Battlefield State Park. And this event is a fundraiser for the SOAR Running Club, which the SOAR Running Club is really awesome. They get kids and youth into running track races and sports. And so it's a really awesome club to support. They often come to a lot of the Ithaca track meets during the winter and the summer, and it's really fun to watch all the kids run. And then finally, the Sri Chimnoy 12-hour and 24-hour looped race is in Rockland State Park, New York. So it's about a 2.95 mile flat loop that you just run around and around for a couple of hours. So sounds pretty gnarly. So yeah, check those out for this week. So we're going to move into the results from the past week. So we're going to start out with Old Dominion 100 miler just occurred this past weekend. And so hopefully he's here. Yes, he is. I'm going to bring James Weaver into the stream with us today. James had a pretty awesome post on Facebook, which I want to read real quick, James. About finishing just under the 19-hour mark at Old Dominion. And he said, we crossed the line in the dirt in the early morning with the goal of returning and crossing another line. Some of us just didn't make it back. But what we all learned during this short span of time can enrich our future. What I learned in that time span was even when things get messy, you can stay balanced. If you can stay balanced, centered mentally, and keep on applying yourself, things will work out. Maybe not immediately, but eventually. And I'm grateful to have a mind and body that allows me to run these long races. So, James, welcome to the Trails Collective and congratulations.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
And I think everybody's probably tired of hearing my voice for the past 6 minutes. So we're thankful to hear from you. So you did Old Dominion this past weekend. Was that your first go at the race?
Yes, it was my first go at Old Dominion.
And how many 100-milers have you done before that? Like, are you pretty experienced or yeah?
So it was actually my first official 100-mile race. I've done the distance twice in like the backyard ultra format, but this would have been my first official like 100-mile race. Yeah.
So before we go on, I want to make note that Kathleen Kusick won for the women in 21:55 and Chad Lassiter won for the men in 18:24. So you weren't that far behind him. What place did you end up?
I ended up in second. So yeah, Chad, I got within 5 minutes of Chad, according to my crew at one point, but he ended up finishing 12 minutes ahead. Just couldn't catch him.
Was it was I mean, that's technically like a sprint finish. I mean, 12 minutes.
Yeah, like it's close. Definitely close in a 100 miler.
So Ian was particularly taken and enamored by your Facebook post. So do you think I want to go into that a little bit? So can you explain what you were thinking and what you meant when you wrote that?
So for me, I mean, I draw a lot of like parallels from running races, especially to life in general. I think when I wrote the post, what I was thinking most about was just like probably like the hard parts that I went through, like after I had my accident, after I lost my arm, and it was tough, like finding a new normal for, I'm gonna say, a year. And now, things are looking a lot brighter. During the race, I also had a lot of issues that could have derailed my race, basically. But I was able to like work through those issues, and at the end of the day, I surprised myself. I ran a time a lot faster than I was expecting to.
So forgive me, I did not know you were an amputee. Are you comfortable with talking about it?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
Okay. How did that happen?
So I was a landscaper and had an accident with a mower.
Okay, that sounds pretty painful.
Yeah. So I was mowing a pond bank. Pond sets up high, there's a slope running down to a creek, and I was mowing after a heavy rain the week prior, and my mower actually ended up, I lost traction, and I didn't want to, I was afraid the mower would flip. So I tried to jump off of the mower, and long story short, I obviously didn't get far off the mower. My blades were still going, and somehow when I landed, my elbow went in through the discharge chute and caught a blade.
Wow, that's quite that's quite something to overcome, I'd have to say. At that point, how long ago was that?
Um, about a year and a half. It would have happened in November of 2020.
Oh, so it's recent. Okay. Were you a runner at that point?
I was.
Okay. Wow, that is incredible. Like, I mean, that you like I can't imagine going through something like that. And how has that like sort of influenced the way? I mean, obviously that was traumatic and painful. How has that influenced the way that you maybe approach or see difficult situations in pain during races?
Definitely. And like it has also like worked in like the opposite way. I feel what I had learned up to that point as a runner, especially an ultra runner, definitely helped me work through the process of adapting the new normal after I lost my arm.
How did you have to reteach yourself how to run? Were the mechanics completely different, or how hard of the learning curve was that?
Oh, it was terrible. So doctors were most worried about balance. I can't say I noticed too much about like being off balance when I was running, but the arm swing, it was like I like one half of my body or it's my right arm that's gone. So it felt like my right leg, I couldn't, there was power there, but I couldn't access that power. I couldn't put it to the ground. So it was basically like just my left leg was driving me forward, and my
Mhm,
right side was just going through the motions of staying along.
mhm.
Especially, I'd especially notice it on like uphills and on the roads.
Yeah, because I mean, definitely using, especially, when we're hiking up hills, sometimes I know I put my hands on my knees to go up. And also, I mean, you think about all the other things like undoing your vest, getting nutrition, things like that, like opening packets. I
Yeah.
assume it's a lot more challenging for you in those kind of ways as well.
Yeah, that was actually that's still a work in progress, really. Like Old Dominion, I thought I had. Well, it started off with like soft flask.
Hmm.
Soft flasks were I thought were the greatest thing invented since sliced bread, really. I hate the sloshing in hard bottles,
Hmm.
but soft flask, I tried everything to save them, but I just I'm not efficient enough in like unscrewing and screwing on the top,
Hmm.
like refilling my water during a run.
Hmm.
So I went with made the switch to hard bottles, and actually went with like a waist pack. But then I started having like chafing issues with the waist pack I had leading up like in my training for Old Dominion. So like a week out from Old Dominion, I was like, well, I'm going back to the pack.
Hmm. Yeah, it's kind of like ultra running. I mean, sorry, it continues to humble me all the time, and so I can imagine that just but it also is like a puzzle, right? So it's kind of you have just been given instead of the 500 piece, you've been given the 5,000 piece, and so you just gotta keep figuring it out as you go along. But obviously, a second place finish is incredible. So congratulations to Old Dominion, which is a very tough race. And
Yeah, thank you.
we're looking forward to keeping and following what you're doing in the next couple of in the next couple of months here. So what's after a rest, what's next for you?
I'm actually coming up for the Whiteface, both races, the vertical K and the 7 miler. I'm hoping my quads are recovered enough to like race the downhill in the 7 miler, but we'll see.
Well, I look forward to meeting you there, and I want to say good luck. And thank you for coming on the show. It's been lovely to have you.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for having me, and good luck at Western States.
Thank you. All right, next we're going to go to Damian and his family, and we're going to talk a little bit about Cayuga and Cayuga Trails, Lucifer's Crossing, and getting the whole family into that running bug. So, hello guys, how are you doing?
All right, yourself? How's it going?
Good. So it was so nice to meet you guys at Pack Up Pickup. I'm sorry we gave you the wrong bibs.
I think we got the right
good.
ones.
I think we were good. Yeah.
It was fine.
Yeah. So Damian, you ended up doing the double, which I didn't know. So for like how was that?
The second day was a bit of a challenge. I don't know why I signed up for it, but yeah, I mean, I guess I am a glutton for punishment, but it sounded like a good idea when I signed up for the second race, and I just didn't realize like how sore my feet would be after running 50 miles.
Sure. Yeah, that's always what gets me too. It's just that my feet, like my body might be fine, but my feet are just like little babies and they're just like raw meat almost. And they just don't want to touch anything.
That's very true. That's probably the best expression I've heard.
Yeah. So you're a veteran at Cayuga though. How many times have you run it now?
So this is my second time there. I ran there last year, I guess, hoping to finish the 50K. And, so I get through 25 miles and I'm talking to Ian, and, he's like sort of like coaching me through like the last 6 miles, like, hey, this is what you're going to, experience. And, you should be fine. You should be able to get through it. So, I run the last 6 miles and I get through the finish, and he's like, sort of like calmly, like, if you want to do another 19 miles and do 50 miles, like you can go right ahead. I think you beat the cutoff. And I was like, there's no way I could run another 19 miles. Like I was tempted to try, but I just knew it wasn't in the cards. And so then I was like, well, next year I'll sign up for the 50 miler and just see how it goes. So, so that was all Ian. Ian planted the seed that it was even possible. So.
Yeah, he tends to do that, but I think he sometimes asks at the wrong time. Like when you're like your legs feel like dead and you're at the end of this race and you're like, oh, I feel so accomplished. And then he's like, you could do 19 more, and then it just gets into your head. Like he did that to me at the end of my first 100K. And I was like, Ian, my bones feel like glass. I can't move anywhere.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. It was just a different mindset last year. Last year, like I said, I wasn't sure I could cover the distance for many reasons. But talking to him afterwards, and it was the way he said it. It just made it seem like 50 miles was doable. And so, I guess I don't know. I guess if I was in a different headspace, I probably would have gone out and tried to let the last 19 miles. But so that's why I came back this year. I guess to see if I could do it. And I mean, he put out a challenging race, so it was a good time. It was a lot of fun.
Yeah, and you did great. It was awesome to watch you going through the loops and stuff. It's a really nice event that like that main area. You get to see people all the time, which is really nice.
No, it was great. I mean, it was great to have my family out there too. I got to see them at mile 18, mile 44, and obviously at the finish. So I think when I saw him at mile 44, I was going through a dark period. So it was good to see them to sort of get me through those like last 6 or 7 miles. But I don't know, just it was gratifying to get across the finish line.
Yeah. So your family also did Lucifer's the next day. So why don't you introduce us to the fam?
So this here on my person here on my left is Anton.
Hi.
This one hiding behind me is Isabella, and this is Juliana. So Lucifer's Crossing was Juliana's idea. She thought it'd be something fun for the kids to do.
It was not fun. It was awful, and I don't like my mom for that.
But somehow she made it through.
Yeah, so
she's not scrolling Ultra Sign Up looking for the next one.
No. She's making sure we roll Ultra Sign Up for the next one.
I do another one.
But he was into it.
Yeah, he did really well. So, Sunday I was like, well, I'll just, hang tight, just, hang with everyone. And then the gun goes off and like they take off and I just could not keep up. And I was like, well, I know it's a lot of uphills. Like I'll catch someone. Like, I mean, it's like, I think somebody's going to burn themselves out and hopefully I catch someone. And, Isabella was gracious enough to stay with me to the finish. So
6 miles is a long time, I mean, when I was her age, I don't think I wasn't running at all. So I think that like the 400 was like the distance event.
Same here.
So so how was it bringing your whole family and is running kind of like a thing you do as a family, or how is it structured?
I have a track background. I used to run track in high school and college. When I met Julie, she was doing long distance events. I think you had just finished a marathon or done a couple of marathons.
Yeah, I was just starting to train for a marathon. So, and we've done some 5Ks together as a family.
Forced to against my own will.
Even though they've won them, the kids sometimes have won their little races and things like that. But we tried to do it, and we ran a little bit more during COVID, when we were quarantined and in the city. That was a good way for us to get around and do PE with the kids. So we've run together. We've never really done a trail race. Issa and I did one up in Van Cortlandt Park, which is a nice trail, but not the same as Ithaca at all. And definitely not.
It's a classic course, isn't it? It's like a cross country, it's destination. That's awesome.
Yeah.
I did Van Cortlandt for my cross country.
So he runs cross country, which is why he wanted to let everyone know just how fast he was on Sunday.
Whatever you say.
Show off.
But it's a nice community. I mean, Damian ended up seeing somebody he'd run a race with before who was faster than us, but was able to run with our son. So, it just enforces like the community that's built, like even throughout the state. We're way downstate. So,
yeah. Are there many trails in New York City?
No.
In terms of trails, it's Van Cortlandt. There might be something in Staten Island, but not that I know of other than that. So.
Well, I know that there is a race being put on by like the Trials of Miles. It's a 50 miler around the Hudson area. I think it's around New York City. But I was, when I saw it, I was like, oh, I didn't even know there were trails down there.
There aren't many, but there's some. Like Harriman is somewhat close, so we can get there. And apparently there's something in Beacon, or was something in Beacon soon.
Yeah, we just did the Breakneck Point.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, we just did that one. That's pretty gnarly. I wouldn't bring the kids for that one. That would start that teenage rebellion real quick.
So.
Well, that's pretty great. So, how was your experience like in the race itself? Let's go through the race a little bit. You did do the 50K last year, and so coming to the 50 miler, was your training a little bit different for this one?
It was different in the sense that last year I had a calf injury like in the early part of training, so I didn't get as many miles as I would have liked. but this year, I think I just got a lot more miles on the road. I experimented with a lot more food. I just felt a little bit better prepared for the ups and downs. I would say the one challenge that I didn't anticipate, because I was running through the 25-mile loop in my head from last year, was Ian switching, I guess, the 15-mile loop around and going up Buttermilk Falls. I mean, it seems like a simple change, but I mean, it took so much out of me in that first loop that, when I came in for that, after 25 miles, I was like, I don't even want to sit down because I don't think I'm going to get up off this bench for the second loop. So I knew I just had to keep moving and talk to people, just do something to distract myself from like the relentless hills in some parts of the course. So, but I mean, it was just, it was good. And then I got lost. I just missed a turn and, added unnecessary miles and I don't know. But like I said, when I got to the end or when I knew I was close, like it was just such a gratifying feeling. Knowing that, I put my mind to something and was able to accomplish it. It was just, I don't know, it's hard to explain.
So how, as a family, are you able to get in your runs? And then I'm sorry, I forgot your wife's name. Yeah. How are you both able to get in your runs while still I guess spending time with each other, spending time as a family, making sure that, things are still running smooth in the family?
Go ahead.
Dragging us along.
So basically, they force us against our own will to run with them when we don't want to. I'd rather stay inside and do nothing, but yeah.
But that's a little bit true. All of it is to an extent. I mean, we're fortunate they're a little bit older. Right. I definitely, the super long distances are easier now. And we actually it's sort of our, date time. It's like, oh, let's go for a run. And it's fun. We'll do especially when the weather's good, do a one-way run and then grab something to eat afterwards. And the kids are older, so they can stay home on their own. And so it's actually a nice reason.
Yeah.
To get time together. So it's good. It's nice.
It's their excuse to get away from us. They don't like us.
Everybody's happy when we go for a run.
Yes.
Kids and parents.
So it's mutual.
Yeah, exactly. Everyone gets their own time a little bit. So
but I have to say,
year, are you going to run the 50 miler, Julie?
Definitely not 50 miler. I think it would be interesting. I'm intrigued. I like the trail running. I feel like it's a little bit more mentally engaging than just road running. I mean, it's all fun, but I don't know. It forces me to be more aware, going up and down and over rocks and roots and things like that. And, I mean, we caught awesome weather and it's such an amazing views. I mean, it was really beautiful. So I'm intrigued in increasing the mileage on trail running. I don't know if I'm quite at 50K yet, but I'm intrigued with you. Yeah, you ready to do 50K?
I've heard it now, everybody.
So
your spot, you just signed up. Your spot is reserved.
You made the commitment.
You ready?
Yes.
Okay.
Well, we look forward to seeing you guys next year if you'll join us again. I'm so glad you had such a good experience. Thank you for bringing the family. And just thank you so much for joining us.
Thanks for having us.
Absolutely.
All right. Next up, we have Scott Snell and Jennifer Russo, who a couple weeks ago, they were first and second, I guess I don't know if that's the appropriate of how to call it, at the Capitol Backyard Ultra, which takes place in Virginia. And so for a little bit of background, the Capitol Backyard Ultra is a silver ticket race. So the winner will qualify to run Big's Backyard Ultra in 2022. So let's bring on Scott and Jennifer. I don't know if I can bring on Jennifer. Let me 1 second. There we go. Okay. Hello.
Hello.
Hey.
All right. So I'm going to give a little bit of background on both of you before we dig into it. So first, Jennifer, you have so many incredible results. This is just a few. You've first at Burning River 100, at Ohio's Backyard Ultra, you got 5th and then 2nd. Mohican 100, 1st place, 2nd at Bigfoot 200, 6th at the Berkeley Fall Classic, 5th at Big's Backyard, and 1st at the Potawatomi 150 miler. So that's kind of incredible. So you got some depth there. So we'll get into that. And then Scott Snell of Beast Coast Trail Running fame. He has a wonderful blog, actually. Everybody should check it out. And he has won the past 4 backyard events that he has run, beginning with 103 miles, then 128, 150, and then this last one at 254. So he's figured something out, and we're going to hear about what that was. So actually, I kind of want to start Scott, I was reading your blog, and you said this training block has been the most gradual, consistent, and intentional training I have ever submitted myself to following. Probably even more so than the plans I used for my first marathon and 100-mile distance races, which were basically the only times I used and followed a training plan. So considering you have won the last backyard ultras that you've done, but this is the furthest you've gotten so far, do you think you figured out something, I guess?
I guess. I mean, I don't. I mean, the concept is pretty simply just don't stop. So, I mean, that's that's the simplest way to put it. But as far as training goes, I don't know. This training block, I tried something new, specifically for backyards. Whereas, in the past, I've just been kind of I never really follow much of a training plan in any way. I just kind of run when my schedule allows and hope for the best. But yeah, the only time I had actually looked up training plans and followed one to some extent was the first marathon I ran and my first 100-miler. So this one was the first time I kind of had a plan that I followed, which was just a very slow and gradual increase of volume, and I really didn't pay hardly any attention to intensity or pace at all. It was all just about building volume over a 3 or 4 month period.
Well, it looks like these races to me as an outsider, that it's also about learning how to sleep or rest a little bit, and then also how to eat, I guess, appropriately. So did you, from doing a bunch of these, and also Jennifer, you can weigh in too, because you have a lot of experience here with these, how have you gotten better at doing those kind of things? So Jennifer, why don't we start with you?
Those are the 2 biggest things I struggle with still, the sleep and the eating. The eating, I find the longer I go in an event, my stomach may be good in the beginning, but then the longer I go, food just isn't appealing. And then the sleep is a struggle too. At some of them I've been able to actually nap, and I tried to get some Z's the first night, but it was just, there's a lot of excitement. It was so loud. I just really couldn't. And the second night I was trying, but every time I lay down, I forgot my darn earplugs. I'm like, oh, darn it. So, I think that was one of my biggest downfalls is I didn't sleep at all. And then the eating, I think you just have to, a variety of little bites of food. And the hard thing, at least for me, is I never know what's going to work and what's not. There's not a set go-to that always works for me. So honestly, I'm still figuring it out. But I think Scott might have some better advice for us.
Yeah, Scott, let's go. Nutritionist Scott.
I'm not. I am nowhere near a nutritionist. I'm just blessed with a stomach that will eat anything. I'm really good at eating, so that's
good.
my superpower of backyards, is that I can eat pretty much anything and my stomach never turns on me.
Oh, that's
So do you
good.
find you do like little things, like you're always just sipping on something, or is it like, oh, I have 10 minutes here at the end of this loop, 1,000 calories in 10 minutes?
Yeah. For me, I like just like try and keep a steady flow of calories all the time. I don't like to, like, I think some people have the strategy of like, I'm gonna like bank some time and have like 15-20 minutes between these laps. That way I can sit down and eat and fill my stomach. But for me, I don't like being inactive that long. I'd rather just like have like maybe 8 to 10 minutes at the most between laps and just have enough time to sit down, refill my water bottle, get just a few bites. I don't want to eat too much at one time, and then just get back up and keep moving. That's what I've done so far, and it seems to be working for me. So that's going to be the plan going forward. Not gonna fix it if it's not broken, you know.
Right. So I want to give Sarah Smith, the race director, a quick shout out. She had, oh my gosh, I've never, like most backyards, you're completely self-sufficient. You know, they'll have water and coffee maybe, and maybe tailwind, but that's it. She had her chefs. They had smoothies, popsicles, ice cream, gnocchi soup. What else? Grape leaved something.
Avocado rice balls. Those avocado rice balls were amazing.
Yes,
and
those were awesome.
Fried bananas.
I was afraid to try those.
See,
they look good, but I was like, oh, I don't know.
I've always
and now we know why, Scott
race
pulled ahead.
Against better judgment, I just go for it and like, oh, let's see, we'll really test this out and see what happens.
Yeah, that's funny. Most of the ones I've done, most of the backyards I've done have been in cooler weather, and I think with the heat too, because I think for everybody when it's hot, it's much harder to eat. But yeah, the iron stomach, that is a gift.
Yeah, and the third day, that heat, the first 2 days I found pretty manageable. The heat didn't really bother me much the first 2 days, but that third day it started getting to me in the afternoon. I was very thankful for the ice and the ice baths at the end of every lap.
Yes.
Oh, that sounds quite lovely. Now you're
It
selling
was.
it.
They were lovely.
Avocado.
It's basically an all you can eat buffet and ice baths, right? What more could you ask for?
Why quit?
Not much. In Virginia, I mean, come on.
And the way they presented it too was awesome, because like every time you came in from a lap, they had 3 or 4 volunteers all lined up right at the start finish area, and they all had a tray of some kind of food. So you just walked past them, whatever looked good, you grabbed it, and you went back to your spot.
Yeah.
You didn't have to move again.
It was phenomenal.
That's
it was
awesome.
Awesome event. Very well organized.
Yep.
Cool. So both of you are also masters runners. So Scott, you're 42, and Jennifer, you're 56. So I'm also like conscious that races like this are relatively new. So do you think that when you were younger, maybe it would have, like, your age has played to your strengths, like you're more, like, I guess, trained, but also have like a deeper endurance base, maybe also more mentally hard than if you had attempted these maybe in the beginning of your career? What are your opinions on that?
Go ahead, Scott.
I guess, I think you hit a couple points there that I would agree with. I think, because I always say patience is a huge part of these races. You have to be patient, because there's nothing you can do is going to stop anyone else from running another lap. I mean, that's completely out of your control, and you just have to accept that and be patient that you're going to be able to hold up longer, basically. And I mean, to maintain that hope and belief when it seems like hopeless is very trying at times. That's where the mental attitude you really need to keep your mental outlook positive, because I mean, as soon as you lose hope, I mean, I think that's the point the race is over. Once you lose hope, it's done. Then you're like, okay, well, there's 8 other people here, or like our situation, that 7 people went 200 miles, and it was like, these 7 people, they're not quitting. They hit 200.
No.
Here
it was awesome.
100. So I think, that's where like age, if and just your demeanor, if you're more of a patient person, I think that's like a huge strength in these types of races.
Mm-hmm.
And Jennifer?
Yep, I would agree. So yes and no, it helps. I mean, obviously, the older you get, you tend to sadly slow down a little bit. So that makes it a little bit harder. And like the sleep deprivation, I think it's a little bit harder. But at the same time, well, I didn't do my first ultra till I was 50, so I kind of jumped in the game pretty late anyway. But I definitely think, now versus 6 years ago, you learn to fight more, I think, and to fight through, like what's that famous saying? It never always gets worse, right? It doesn't always get worse. You'll have a time that's awful and you just want to lay down and go to sleep or just throw in the towel, but then you're back up again. You just have to be, as Scott emphasized, patience is a huge part of it. And I just think, and I think that mental toughness and if you can really just fight through it, and have the patience to fight through it and just that mental strength. And I think too, just channeling maybe some other races that you've done that have been so difficult, but you fought, you just kept fighting and got through it. And then at the end, it's just the reward is fantastic. Like Bigfoot, for example, that first day I thought, oh, I don't know, the smoke, the altitude, it was 105, I was like, oh, I'm like, what am I doing here? I don't belong here. And then sure enough, just fighting, there were times where I had to fight really hard to get through it. And then it was, I remember the end was so easy. Like somehow it just became easy and it was so fun. So, I think just drawing on that experience just really helps you to push yourself forward, I think.
Is there like a psychological bump maybe in these looped events that like maybe you're on a loop and you're having a down loop? Well, you finish the loop. Do you think it's a little bit easier to sort of like change your perspective because it is a different loop? So it's kind of like a little bit psychologically different? Or did you just find that like a 250-mile race, like, I don't know, 20 miles were just awful?
I don't know. For me, I don't know that it necessarily started over. I do like the switch between the road and the trail. I thought that was a nice way to change it up a little, something to look forward to. I know like the first day, I didn't even want to know, and the second day too, really, I didn't really even want to know what loop we were on during the day. I just keep running, you know what I mean? And then all of a sudden, oh, it's starting to get a little dark. Look at that. It's almost time to go back to the road. So I don't know that the loop made such of a difference. I think one thing though, like the more, and Scott, you've done numerous ones of these, and I was telling this to a few people that were brand new. I think sometimes the more you do, the harder it is because you know what it feels like to get to some of those higher distances. Whereas like your first one, it's all like bright and shiny and new, and you don't really know what to expect. So I think at a point it can be like, when you're trying to beat a PR where you went fairly long, I think it gets in your head a little bit because you're at 150 miles, you're like, wow, I'm kind of tired. Everything kind of hurts already, and like so you just can't think too far in advance. I guess for the backyard, I think is one of the biggest, well, in any race really, right? You just can't think too far ahead.
Scott, what about for you? Is it mentally refreshing for each loop, or is it the 6 loops just feel terrible?
Yeah, for me, I like to always just try and like take it one loop at a time and not think about anything else. I think Jennifer, you hit that point that it's like you can't look too far ahead, and it's just like, and for me that's by just like focusing on the loop I'm in. I mean, it may be a terrible loop, but it's just like you gotta, if you're having that terrible loop, it's just like get through that loop and I don't know. Yeah, maybe it is kind of like refreshing, or maybe just it's like a kind of like resetting yourself. Like whether you have if you have 5 minutes, and it's just kind of like you kind of mentally reset and be like, okay, that was a crap loop, but you know what? This is a new loop, so this can be a good one. So it's I think it's kind of like a mental reset. So and it's just like, yeah, you just have to take it one loop at a time, because that's that's all you can do in backyards is focus on your loops. Nothing gonna, how you run your loop isn't going to change how anyone else runs their race. So it's just all about what you do, and you just have to.
Well, you sort of bring up a good point there. So I was going to ask next, when does it become like you want to get as far as you can go versus you want to win? Because you really sort of, not only do you need to worry about your race, but you needed to, in order to get farther, you needed Jennifer to keep going. So yeah, explain that style of competition. Like you kind of need, it's like in order for excellence, you kind of need the competition to also be excellent. And so how were you thinking in terms of the race? Like, did you want to see how far you could go, or did you want to win? I guess, Scott, we'll start with you.
Yeah, that's a tricky one because it's kind of both. I mean, it's almost like you want it all at that point, because I mean, my PR before this was 150 miles at the last backyard I ran. That was the backyard squatch, and so when I was doing this race, when I passed that PR, it was like really cool because I was like, okay, well, everything from here on is like I'm building and building. And when you're 100 miles past your PR, it's like, all right, let's keep going and see how much farther I can, bump up this PR. This is awesome. And when you're feeling okay, then it's like, well, why stop?
Mm-hmm.
So, but then at the same time, it's like you're physically exhausted, you're mentally exhausted, and you're completely behind on sleep, and the sleep deprivation is messing with your head. So at the same time, it's like, yeah, you want to stop, it's not good to keep going at some point, but you also like, it's always like you kind of want to push the edge of the envelope a little bit farther and see what find my limit on this day. That's always been my goal up until this race. Every backyard I did, my goal was to either be the last person standing or to find my limit on that day. And up to this point, it was I was the last person. And then this one, the goal was a little bit different because with it being the silver ticket race to Biggs, my goal was to get a spot at Biggs. So then my goal was not just to kind of finding my limit wasn't I guess on level with being the last person standing for this race, being the last person and getting that guaranteed spot at Biggs was the number one goal for this race.
Okay.
So, I mean, it's definitely mixed emotions though, because when you're 104 miles past your PR, it's like really cool to keep pushing. So, I mean, it's like, and when you've been running with a small group for so long, it's like it's a weird mental state because you're like you're sad every time you see someone drop off, but you're like, okay, well, I'm one spot closer to hitting my, being the last one. So it's a mixed bag of emotions every time someone doesn't make it back.
Yeah, well, Jennifer, you've been second now twice, so I mean, we gotta next one. We gotta I'll help you
3 times.
3 times. So I'll help you plan some sabotage. We can really get these mind games going. I got you.
It's funny. I am not a mind game person. In fact, I think I made Scott very uncomfortable on the third night, but that's another story we'll get into. Yeah, it's funny. The first one I did, I thought I'd hate it. I had no clue what I was doing, and I hadn't planned ahead. Like all of a sudden it's Sunday night. We're still going. It's down to 2 of us, and I've got to get the kids are home. I got to get them to school the next day. They're calling like, are you guys coming home? Like,
no,
yeah. And then
you don't need to go to school.
I know, right? You're on your own. This is what's more important. I mean, priorities, right? Come on.
Yeah.
And then when I was second to Harvey Lewis, like when it was down to just the 2 of us, I'm like, I'm sorry. He's just, I knew there was no beating him, but I decided to hang on as long as I could, which was fun. But then I had pulled something, but I kept going for another 70 miles. And finally I'm like, okay, it's time to be done. But yeah. And going into this one, it's interesting because I looked at the roster of the runners and I'm like, oh, holy cow. I mean, it was stacked. And then we did lose, John Knoll was supposed to be there and he ended up pulling out. But I thought, oh, what am I doing? Like, why would I pick this one? Because Ohio didn't go as planned. And so then I thought, oh, I'll give one more try. And I looked at the list and I thought, man, so for this one, I silver ticket. Yeah, would have been awesome. Right. But I had 225 or 54 yards previous, but I knew that wouldn't be enough. I didn't think that would be enough to get me on that 15-person team. So I had a couple of different goals. One was just my last one mentally. I physically I had been injured, and then mentally I wasn't there, and I was very disappointed in myself. So I'm like, all right, this is I gotta make sure I'm mentally strong. And so I just set a goal of 300 in my mind. I'm like, I don't care. That way I'm not threatened or intimidated by all these other really strong runners. My goal is 300. If I could hit 300, I would be thrilled. And that would definitely be enough, for big. So that's kind of where I set my goal. So I was trying to, it's so easy to get hung up on what everybody else is doing. And oh my gosh, like the guys that go super fast every lap. And I'm like, how do they do that? And for days, they're always first. And then, it's so easy to get caught up on what other people are doing and to worry about it. So I'm like, I'm not going to worry about anybody else. I'm just going to do what I can. And, I knew 300 was quite lofty, but you gotta go big or go home, right?
Yeah. So
yeah.
Why did you stop?
So those last 3 day loops on Saturday were rough. My stomach had been so bad for a while. And everyone I started out too slow. Like I was in the meadow, I was just trying to walk and like get my stomach to calm down. And it's, you're baking in the sun. And then I hit the turnaround and I'm like, oh, darn it. I'm like 5 minutes behind where I need to be. In 5 minutes, that early on, and is a lot of time to be behind. So then I had to really hoof it back and had to negative split. And I was sprinting the uphills, it felt like I was sprinting. I'm sure I was not, and so then by the time I made it back in each of those loops, it was tough, but I fought, especially those last two, man, I had to fight hard to get through them and couldn't take water out of my last one because of my crew was holding it when the bell rang. So, no water, but it's all good. So I got done and, I had about a minute or so and then we're walking out to the road, starting the road loop. And I told Scott, I said, go ahead, I'm going to just kind of regroup. So I started walking. And as I'm walking, like my brain was doing funny things. Like I'm walking, just taking a stroll. And I'm like, oh, this is so nice just to chill out, take a little walk. And I'm like, okay, well, I did it. I'm done. I made it through. I fought through those day loops. Thank goodness that's over. I'm done. And in my mind, like I was thinking, okay, so the trail backyard's done. This is like a new backyard. Now we're starting the road backyard. I don't know if I want to be in this road backyard. So I'm just kind of walking. And then it dawns on me, no, what are you doing? You're not done. This is, we're still out here going. And if I don't pick up the pace, I'm going to time out and not make it back. And I don't want that. Like, I don't want to stop. I felt physically okay. I think just mentally, my brain was fried. And so I saw Scott on the first out and back and just waved or whatever. And then I saw him on the second one and I didn't even know exactly where I was at the loop. I passed the fire station, but I didn't realize it. I don't know what was going on. But I asked Scott, I go, so how far do you want to go? And Scott looked at me like, what do you that's not proper backyard etiquette.
What are you talking about? What kind of question is that? I thought we were going all night.
I know. And I said, well, I told him, and I said, I really wanted to go 300. I go, and I looked at my watch, I go, but I don't think I'm going to make it back now. And sure enough. And so then I did, I started running and I was looking at my watch and I realized I was done. But I didn't want to be done, but I was okay with it because I knew 250 was pretty solid, but I would have loved to have kept going because physically I felt like I was fine. I think honestly, just those last few loops just did me in, like, a combination of things, and I just delirious and yeah, I don't know, but it's all good.
You had me pretty worried on those last few day loops there. The one you went out,
I was barely making it.
Yeah, a couple of those are really close, and then the one you went out when you didn't have the water bottle, like that's when I was like really worried that something bad's gonna happen this lap, like because I was drinking.
That was so nice.
I was drinking like nearly a full bottle of water every lap out there all day. It was so warm. Right. So when he went out without one, I was like, I was like, I don't think she's going to make it back this time.
Yeah.
When I first took off, but then I thought about it a little. And I was like, I'd seen how you were coming in with like 3 minutes consistently. Like it seemed like you really knew where you had to be for the second half. Because every time you're like a minute or two behind me on that out and back. And I was like in my comfortable range, and I was like, I know if I was where you were, I'd be nervous, but you seem to be comfortable where you were, and you were making it back with a few minutes to spare every time. So I was like, okay, that's how she's running her laps. That's how she's doing it.
It was a struggle. And Scott was so nice. He was like, we were talking, and he was worried I didn't have water, and he wanted to offer me some of his, and it was very sweet. And I'm like, nope. He's like, I wanted to go some road loops. I'm like, it's okay, I'll be back. Don't worry, I got this. I won't time out.
I loved that you were so
Yeah.
confident when you said that, though. That was great because, like, I was like, when he took off without the water bottle, I was like, oh man, this is over. This is over this lap. And then, like, you were just like, no hesitation. Like, I'm not timing out this lap. That was just great.
Well, that's some great camaraderie, and congratulations to both of you on 250 miles, 254 for you, Scott. So are there any more backyards you'll have before Bigs, or do you have another backyard scheduled, Jennifer?
So I'm going to be watching. I told Laz, sent an email out with like who's in and, you know, in like the at-large list. And I was number 5th out of 9. So like out of the 15, 6 are silver tickets, that there's 9 open spots. And I was 5th, right dab in the middle, you know, right smack in the middle. And then somebody drops and I'm 4th. Laz seems to think it's no problem, I'm in. So I hope so. But, you know, anything can happen.
Sure.
So I'm ready for a little break from the backyards. I would like to, you know, if I had to run another one, there's one in Ohio in August, but I don't think I'll need to, and I don't really want to, honestly. I do really want to go back to Bigs, though. And I think that would be just such an honor to be on that USA team. And, you know, I don't want to burn out between now and then either. You know what I mean? I want to be ready to go mentally, physically, give it everything. Because I think working together as a team, I just think it'll be so fun.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, just figure out those nutrition issues and you'll be all good to go.
Yes, I know.
That's one.
I do better when it's cooler.
That's one of the main reasons I was like so pumped to try and get on to Bigs this year, is because of the team aspect of it. Like, I think that's such a cool idea how Laz organized it with the international teams doing satellite competitions. I'm psyched for the team backyard.
Yeah, me too. I think it'll be super fun.
Well, good luck to both of you.
Yep.
We will be watching here at the Trails Collective. Thank you so much for coming on.
Sure. Thanks so much for having us.
Awesome. Thank you for having us.
All right. And last but certainly not least, we have results from the World's End 100K. Course records went down. People cried. People laughed. It's great. And so now we're going to bring on Andrew Styer and Justin Scheid.
Hello.
Hello, gentlemen.
Hi.
How's it going?
Welcome to the show. So a little bit for the audience about World's End. The World's End Ultramarathon is a foot race that explores the Loyalsock Trail, Loyalsock State Forest, and the World's End State Park in the Endless Mountains of Pennsylvania. And so the route is a semi-dense single track and some fairly remote sections, waterfalls, but beautiful views in the Endless Mountains. So would you say that's a pretty accurate description?
Very accurate. It's a wonderful course. It's a magnificent course.
So the 100K winner is Justin Scheid here on the bottom, and Rebecca Kosak. And Justin, I think you crushed the course record in 10:54. Am I correct?
No, so I actually missed. So the course record that was shattered was in the 50K.
50K, yes.
Yeah,
so
Reagan
McCoy, 440 in the 50K, and then Kara Moyer, 659. Both incredible performances. So congratulations, and also to you, Andrew. I think it's. I'm led to believe that you had a little bit of a different day out there. Yes.
Yeah. So this was my 3rd time doing World's End. The first time I finished it in like 1804, struggled. Last year I DNF'd at High Knob, which is 35 miles. And this year I didn't even intend to do this race. I was 93rd on the wait list and I was the last person in. So I had less than a week to assemble a team, pacers, a crew, and do this race, because next week I'm doing Laurel Highland 70 miler. So I'm just like, hey, why not do 2 of these in a row, you know? So I wasn't really intending on racing this. I just wanted to finish it. And I barely finished it. I was the last person in and almost the last person in at the race too. I finished, I think, at 18:55, which was exciting. I mean, I wanted to quit. Like, I really wanted to quit because, like, normally I'm a strong mid-pack runner, but this course for me just gives me problems, and it gave me problems. I was doing fairly well. I was looking like a maybe a high 16 finish. And then there's this one climb after the High Knob aid station. And I lost my stomach. My poor pacer, she had to endure me in the worst possible times you could deal with a runner, barfing all over the place, dry heaves. And then I get to mile 50 and I'm like, I was just like, I'm quitting this. I don't need to do this anymore. But my crew was cool, and my pacers, they're like talked me into it. And then finally I'm just like, okay, that's it. I'm going to finish this. I went back out. So yeah, that's kind of my short version tale.
Long day out there, but
yeah, long day for sure.
Yeah. So you're doing Laurel Highlands in a couple of days. So good luck to you, sir.
Thank you.
You'll come out of that. You're gray. Your beard is just going to be gray.
Yeah.
Yeah. I actually did Laurel Highlands before, and I actually did better at Laurel Highlands than I ever did at World's End. It's just something about the World's End course. It's unrelenting. You got climb after climb after climb, technical trails all day long. It tests all your abilities, and for a guy like me, I expect to finish in the dark, so it's like, yeah, it's just, it's a wonderful course though. It really is.
Well, congrats on gutting that one out.
Thank you.
But Justin, amazing race. Congratulations.
Thank you.
So take us through your race. Was this your goal? Is this a goal race for you?
It was my first 100K. I actually, so the registration opened, I think like December 1st. It was like, I knew from last year it had sold out immediately. So you have to register like ASAP. Although this year they did go quite deep into the wait list, as I understand it. But I ran JFK 50 last year. That was my first 50 miler. And it went really well. So I was kind of pumped. And yes, it's not the technical trail after the first 16 miles, because then you get sort of like a flat marathon there. But I was interested because after graduating college, like 13 years ago now, it's sort of been the same races every year. So I was just looking to try something different. I did Cayuga 50K last year, and then that's when I met Ian for the first time, and jumped in like the 25K at the Highlands, New Jersey festival a few weeks prior to this one. But this was the race. This was the race I was sort of aiming for the spring, summer, and the training block went really well. But again, not having done 100K, I was very nervous. I wish I would have had like that steel stomach that we were just talking about that Scott was talking about just recently. But for me, it ended up going very well. And I think part of it was certainly the weather. I think last year, and Andrew, who ran it last year, probably say, I think it was 90 degrees. And so this year it was like 50 degrees at the start. So 50 degrees, very low humidity. I think that just played, into my hands pretty well. And then, but it was great. We had a pack of like 5 or 6 going out through the first 4 miles, hit the aid station 1 with 4 of us. And then aid station 2, I was running with Tristan, who actually told me that he did a 100-mile race 3 weeks prior to this. And so I was just like, look, I hope my first 100K is going to go just as well as someone who's able to recover quickly from a 100-mile race 3 weeks ago. And it did. But everything Andrew said is absolutely correct about the course. It is up and down the whole way. There was very, very few sections that are flat. The final section is a little bit more runnable. It's sort of like, it feels like more of like Jeep type roads. But it is all up and down, but it was a lot of fun. I mean, from the waterfalls to the volunteers at the aid stations. And what was remarkable, the volunteers, just every aid station was something unique, whether it was, I think some of them were making like watermelon smoothies for the athletes, but just how encouraging the volunteers were phenomenal. And then some other people out there like taking videos and cameras, and even David Walker, one of the directors, was like at the mile mark at the first aid station, was following us with a camera. And I was like, hey, you want to jump in? He's like, no, I'd have to take off my jeans. So I'm going to run the rest of it. And I was like, I don't know if that's a good excuse or not, man. Just, hit the race director, throw on shorts and, come on. But it was fun. It was a lot of fun. And like I said, my legs held up great. And I think part of it was just, I was very under control the whole way. Just run. It wasn't focused on pace. I wasn't focused on trying to get to an aid station at a specific time. And I think that made it much more enjoyable and much more carefree for purposes of it.
Yeah. So you mentioned that since graduating college, I guess 13 years ago, you said you've been doing mostly the same thing. So is that like marathoning or what sort of same things?
Yeah, so it's been predominantly road races, anything from 5Ks up to marathons. So I've done the Boston Marathon 3 times. I've done New York, and I've done some smaller races, and then a lot of like 5K, 10Ks for like the local races here in New Jersey. And so trail running used to just really be going out like on the weekend and going to a park and doing a run, but I wasn't really doing a whole lot of trail racing, and that sort of just took on more recently with Steve Lanch, who lives nearby, does the Breakneck Point race and does a lot of these FKTs on the trails. And so just sort of looking at sort of his Strava feeds and getting more into it and just trying to be more active and going out to get in trail runs on a more regular basis than what I had been doing.
Yeah. Did you run in high school and college? I
did. Yeah. So that helps. I ran through high school and college and then just tried to keep doing it around the work schedule. So I prefer getting up and running before work in the morning. To me, that feels better than sort of in the evening when I feel like I'm just tired from the work day.
So what was your lowest moment out there?
Yeah, so I'd say the lowest moment. So I had my parents and my wife served as the crew, and my dad still runs a little bit. He's in his 60s, and he really wanted nothing to do with like pacing, but you are allowed pacers to jump in at certain aid stations. And so the first one, I think, was like High Nub at aid station 7, and I was feeling okay there. But then you go down a steep hill, cross over road, and you basically come straight back up. So I got to the next station. I was like, hey, can you run with me to the next aid station? Like I'm running, 10, 11-minute mile pace. Can you, jump in for 5 miles? He's like, absolutely not. And so then I got to aid station 10. And I was like, hey, are you sure? Like, can you just do like 5? He's like, no. So it was the pleading picked up throughout the course, but then he just shot me down every time.
And what was the best part?
The best part, I would say, was certainly, I just felt like once you hit the final aid station and you're coming, you got 6 miles to go and you actually go past an aid station that you came to prior. And so I think once you're there and you see the sign for the World's End Trail, it is a crushing descent on the quads going down there. But at least at that point, you've made it and you're about to finish. Andrew, I don't know how your experience was if you thought you had to really push that section to get in under the 19-hour window there.
Oh yeah. When I was when my pacer and I came off that Jeep road, I knew about that descent already, and I knew it's a crusher, but I actually bombed that thing because I looked at my watch and I was at like 12 minutes to go. And I'm like, oh shit, I really need to move. So we just nailed it. And yeah, I mean, that was awesome. Like it's a different feel when when the clock's chasing you down, because it's like, I think I got just as many cheers as maybe you did finishing first, but people were excited seeing the last couple runners come in, just beating that clock out. It was an exhilarating feel. It was the first time in a race ever I've been that close to a cutoff that it was just exciting. It really was.
Well, we hope that you're not chasing the cutoff at Laurel this weekend.
I hope not.
And that's enough drama anxiety for a while. Well, congratulations to you both on finishing a super, super hard ultra 100K. And Justin, I hope we see more of you in the 100K ultra space here on the East Coast.
Absolutely. Best of luck to you at Western States.
Thank you. All right, guys. Thanks for joining us. Have a good rest of your night and happy training.
Thanks.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
All right, Trails Collective. Thanks for tuning into this live show tonight. Probably next weekend we'll be back with your regularly scheduled Ian Golden show. I am Ellie. You can follow me at Gazelli on Instagram and Twitter. You can follow the Trails Collective on Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, and YouTube. Thank you so much for watching tonight, and see you out there on the trails.